Hello, my YouTube family. Anna here. Let's turn on the lights in the room. Today's story is quite terrifying. This story is from the UK, and it's about a haunted station cottage. Let's move on to the story. My parents found Station Cottage a year ago, an old place built in the 1800s, steeped in history and, quietly, in death. Not recent deaths, they assured me, just echoes from a distant past. It was built for the station master, its very name, a morbid reminder of its origin. The old station, they said, was torn down, its bones scattered to build the very houses that now surround this one. The architect, a man living next door, a silent witness to the house's strange genesis. The train line, a ghost of its former self, now only carries the rumbling weight of freight in the dead of night. I arrived in June, fresh from university, a reluctant visitor after years of silence between us. Station Cottage was my first glimpse into their new life, and something about it felt off. Peaceful, yes, but with a stillness that was too deep, too absolute. It settled over me like a shroud, a heavy calm that felt less like relaxation and more like a profound, unnatural quiet. Even with my history of complex PTSD and the constant hum of anxiety that lives in my bones, this peace was unnerving. It felt imposed, a fragile veneer over something far older and darker. My parents, however, were utterly captivated. They spoke of the house in hushed, reverent tones. My mother, a Wiccan, still believes, though her practice has dwindled. My aunt, a devout witch, visited, and her eyes, usually sharp and discerning, softened as she described a good home, a place of kind energy. The front bedroom, she insisted, pulsed with this benevolent force. Everyone who entered it felt it, a gentle, feminine presence. To me, it felt watchful, like being observed by something ancient and unknowable. When my mother finally confided in me about the strange occurrences, her voice was a little too light, a little too dismissive. Keys in the front door, she said, swinging wildly for 20 minutes, as if agitated by an unseen hand. The playful tugging of hair, a mischievous spirit. Small things, she insisted. But the way her eyes flickered, the slight tremor in her hands, told a different story. They were believers, yes, but their belief felt tinged with a fear they wouldn't name. Unlike them, I had already danced with the supernatural, faced things that clawed at the edges of reality. My experiences, too personal to share, had left me with a chilling understanding that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. The subtle disturbances began to escalate for me. The hair pulling became more insistent, a cold brush against my neck in the dark. The keys swung with a frantic energy, a metallic clanging that echoed through the silent house. But I saw a pattern my parents refused to acknowledge. These phenomena intensified after arguments, after my mother's sharp words and my father's weary retorts filled the air. It was as if the house itself reacted to the disharmony, a feminine spirit, yes, but her motherly presence now felt less comforting and more possessive, a silent command, don't fight, you belong to me now. The first time I saw a full-bodied apparition, the house was quiet, wrapped in the deceptive peace of night. My parents were asleep. I crept to the downstairs toilet, vulnerable in my underwear. I moved from the living room, through the dining room, and into the kitchen, The layout, a disorienting maze of original stone and unsettling modern extensions. The kitchen, a flat oval shape, felt vast and empty in the low light. The dining room door to my left, the back door to my left, the toilet door to my right. The original section, the base of the U, felt like the heart of the house, a place where the past clung to the very stones. As I rounded the corner into that original part, facing the dining room doorway, he was there. An old man, solid and real, standing in the threshold. A dark suit, a hat pulled low, white hair, and a beard that seemed to absorb the scant light. He held a walking stick, its tip resting silently on the aged flagstones. His face, etched with a strange mixture of surprise and something else, something I couldn't quite place. He looked as startled to see me, half dressed in the middle of the night, as I was to see him. And then, as quickly as he appeared, he was gone, vanished. I stood frozen, the cold seeping into my bare skin. No fear, not exactly. Not the gut-wrenching terror I'd known before, but a profound sense of displacement. He didn't feel like an intruder. He felt like he belonged here, and perhaps I didn't. The apology I mumbled as I stumbled through the doorway felt less like an apology for surprising him and more like a plea for acceptance. I began to perform small rituals, dressing fully before venturing downstairs, closing doors behind me with deliberate care, opening the dining room door slowly, announcing my presence with a soft tap. Sometimes a heavy weight would descend in the dining room, a palpable pressure that told me he was there. My knocks became a silent acknowledgement, a fragile truce. Was the feminine presence his wife? His daughter? Or something far more ancient and tied to this place than simple familial bonds? I kept the apparition to myself for days. It felt too ordinary to share. My previous encounters with the supernatural had been laced with a terrifying urgency, a desperate need to warn others. This was different. This was a quiet intrusion, a glimpse behind the veil that felt less like a threat and more like a welcome, a chilling thought, given the house's history. Perhaps the posterity I sought in sharing this was less about curiosity and more about a desperate need to understand what kind of welcome this truly was. The next experience was in my bedroom, the new extension, a space that felt less steeped in history but no less vulnerable. It was a stifling hot night, the windows open to the oppressive stillness. A persistent knocking began, a rhythmic rap against the solid wood of my desk. Not the gentle taps of a branch, but a deliberate, insistent sound, as if someone was trying to get my attention. I lay there, a cold dread creeping up my spine, trying to rationalize it away. The cottage was detached. My parents were asleep. The knocking continued, relentless, demanding. I didn't move. I couldn't. It didn't feel malicious, but it felt hungry, like something wanted to be let in. Was it a wandering spirit, drawn from the dark tracks of the railway line that still hummed with unseen energy, or something else, something tied to the very fabric of this place, reaching out from the shadows? My mother was the next to see him, 6 p.m, the light beginning to fade, casting long, distorted shadows. She was at the back door, washing vegetables. The conservatory doors opened to the heavy air. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a figure walk through the doors, approach the back door, and stand beside her. She assumed it was my father until she saw him enter the conservatory as well. She turned, and there he was, the same old man I had seen, described in chilling detail. My father caught a glimpse of his back before he dissolved. My mother said he didn't look surprised this time. He looked expectant, as if he was simply coming home for his dinner after a long day's work. The ordinariness of it was the most terrifying part. They weren't ghosts haunting the house. They were living in it, alongside us, their presence as natural to them as breathing. Last week, I left for university, a brief escape. Returning yesterday felt like stepping back into a cage. I stood by the back door, waiting for my father, and a sudden stillness fell over the kitchen. My gaze was drawn to the dining room door. A dark shape, a head and a hand, was peeking out, like a boy playing a macabre game of hide and seek. It ducked back in as I looked, and a cold smile touched my lips, not because it was heartwarming, but because of the sheer audacity of it. A spirit, acknowledging my return, observing me from the shadows. "What's going on?" it seemed to say. "Oh, it's you. Welcome home. Welcome back to our home." I felt the presence of a male spirit, yes, but there was a hint of something else, something younger, more restless. A third presence, a flicker at the edge of my perception. Playful, perhaps, but with a sharp edge. The one who pulled the hair, the one who knocked on the desk. This latest encounter solidified it. This wasn't a story of friendly ghosts. This was a story of a house that had claimed its occupants, living and dead. I felt a chilling sense of being wanted, yes, but not in a comforting way. More like being marked. Station Cottage, which had seemed to offer my family a new lease on life, now felt like a gilded cage. Our old house, a new build with no history, had felt oppressive, but at least it was empty. Here I felt watched, judged, and slowly, subtly consumed. The changes in our family dynamic, the newfound peace, no longer felt like a blessing. It felt like a bargain, a price paid for sharing a house with the dead. And I had a terrifying feeling that the full cost had yet to be revealed.